This morning, my guests are three gallant gentlemen. First in the studio with me is Kwame Bosio, the Secretary to the Independent Committee of the CPP, the equivalent of the General Secretary of the CPP, so to speak. And we also have Kojo Poku, who is an energy analyst, as well as Dr. Wisdom Dugbe joining me via Zoom. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, good morning.
Morning.
Great. So let me start from here in the studio with me. Kwame Bosio,
Yes.
I'll give you a minute or two to walk us through what's on top of your mind this morning.
I have three things. Briefly, the call in the NPP manifesto to grant some reprieve for people with disabilities in the education sector, the call to expand the number of individuals in the security services, and the call by Madam Joyce Aye that partisanship is keeping the progress of this country behind. To start with the first one, I believe that as much as what NPP seeks to do for the people with disabilities seems a bit vague, it is not clear. I think it is, in a way, something that calls the attention of all of us, that people with disabilities need more to be done for them. There are still places where you go and there are no wheelchair ramps and other facilities for them. So I think that the other political parties too, as much as the NPP's statement was a bit vague, the other political parties should also come out with such things. Our party, we've always championed the cause of people with disabilities. I also call on the other parties to also come out to champion the cause of people with disabilities.
Right. But you yourself said that there's no structure or proper system to aid these persons.
Yes.
And so if the Vice President is promising to be more intentional to them, I think that's a step in the right direction, isn't it?
It is, but it's still a bit vague. You know, election period, sometimes the promises are not so direct. It always seems it is couched in a way to get the votes, but it is not couched in a way that you can be held to your promises. So I think, well, it is a good call. It is a good call, and I should commend him for that.
Okay.
It is a good call, yes.
Let me come to you, Dr. Wisdom Dugbe. Doctor, walk us through your thoughts this morning. You have about a minute and a half.
So thank you for having me again. I just want to comment a bit on this supposed debt restructuring agreement with independent power producers. I think that government officials have a fiduciary duty, to tell Ghanaians the truth at all times. When the finance minister announced that they had successfully renegotiated and also restructured the nations there with the independent power producers, I thought it was a great achievement. And I even commended them on the effort, really, as a great progress for the nation's their sustainability, which I also thought that it will increase our prospects when it comes to heading back to economic recovery and sustainability. Only for us to be hearing now from the IPP's chief executive that negotiations are still ongoing and nothing has been finalized yet. He accused the finance minister of misleading the nation when it comes to the status of the negotiations. And so I've been wondering why the finance minister and his team thought it was a good idea to grossly mistake the facts in this case, which will have enormous impact on the process and put undue pressure on the stakeholders involved. This is very unfortunate, quite frankly, an embarrassment to the office of the finance minister. I think it demonstrates that our leaders are more interested in scoring, cheap political points than actually solving problems for Ghanaians. And I'm very certain that eventually the agreement with the IPP will be reached. But to announce that the agreement is already in place, when in fact you are just in the negotiation stage, I think that is very disingenuous and it shows gross dishonesty to the nation.
Kojo Poku. Dr. Wisdom, thank you for your thoughts. Kojo Poku.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's on your mind? I sense you're going to respond to some of, yeah. Go on.
Well,
what's on your mind?
I have to, because some of them are misinformation, but I can't use my 1 minute for that. So if you give me some time to respond to that and give me the 1 minute that I need to do my submission,
you have 2 minutes. Go on.
Thank you very much. Look, let me tell my brother who says that the policy on people with disability is vague. It's not vague. It's very simple. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, promises that he's going to give free tertiary education to people with disability. That is clear. He's going to give an employment quota to people with disability within the public sector. That is clear. I don't see where the vagueness is in that two statements. So there's a lot in the manifesto. There's a lot to do with people with disability. But the two very clear statements is that, one, people with disability will go to tertiary education for free. Second one, there's going to be a quota in the public sector hiring for people with disability. Very clear, emphatic statement. Now, let me go to my brother in the US, Kadobe. There are more than 7 IPPs in Ghana. When he says IPP negotiation has not been concluded, there's only one company that the IPP negotiation has not been completed. That is Car Power. All the other IPP negotiations have been completed and have been forwarded to the right places for approval and the public be made aware. I don't know which executive that he's talking to. He talks as if IPP is only one company. There are over 7 IPPs in Ghana. So if you talk about an yes, please, that is not the right statement. There is a challenge with only one CAP statement. In the couple of on Sunday, there was a beautiful document that was put in front of Ghanaians called the MPP manifesto. I think we should all pay attention to the best and the most innovative tax reform proposal that has ever been put in front of Ghanaians. Look, as far back as 2018, there were only 1.5 million people with what you call a tax identification number. Because of the digitization drive by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, today there is 18 million people with the tax identification number.
All right,
now, when somebody says that, oh, but you say you're going to give me 1 minute.
Yes, 2 minutes is up. And this is just the beginning. We do have to get into the papers. Maybe in the course of your submissions, you can come in and elaborate more on these points. All right. So let's start with the daily graphic. I know you want to respond, but I think your concern was that there are no structures like a demarcated place for persons with that. Yes. But we'll get to that.
Well,
all right. So let me start with the daily graphic. President cuts sought for $12 billion Petroleum Hub project. Voters exhibition begins today, and we have a photo of the chairperson, Jean Mensah, here. Peace is collective duty, according to a Peace Council member, and 10-member New Times Corporation Board inaugurated. Let's start with the story on voters exhibition that begins today. And there was, preceding this date and beginning this process, there was some controversy about the NDC and some other parties saying that the provisional voters register should have been made available to the political parties some time ahead. And but now the NDC, we brought you that story this morning, and the NDC has in fact picked up their copy of the voter register, and the other parties are also picking theirs up. Have you picked up yours from the CPP?
Our IPAC representatives have picked up.
Okay, great. Let me read an excerpt here and then we'll get the conversation going. The Electoral Commission is set to mount the voters exhibition exercise from today to Tuesday, August 27th, to enable voters to verify their details in the register for the December 7 general election. And the week-long exercise, scheduled to take place between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Viewers take note, daily, including Saturday and Sunday, involves all registered voters. Quote, the purpose of the exhibition exercise is to allow for prospective voters to verify their voter details such as name, sex, age, among others. But let me add this detail, and there will be electronic verification as well. Mr. Tete said prospective voters could also check their details electronically via the short code *711*51#. So you can dial *711*51# for just 50 pesos to check your details electronically without having to go and, queue for long hours at the various stations that they're exhibiting this register. Let me start with you in the studio here. What's your review of this story? The EC beginning to exhibit the voter register?
I think it's, as is done every once in a while, it's part of the mandate of the EC to do that. And I've heard the calls by the NDC and others complaining about a few things. But I believe that currently the EC is doing their best from my perspective and under the current circumstances. They have met most of their timelines, and you know, as an independent body, we cannot, the political parties, as much as we are interested in them doing a fair job, we cannot railroad them into doing things just to suit our whims and caprices. I think that so far, they have done a good job. They always write to us on time to keep up with the various moves that they are doing. We got our request to bring our hard disks for the provisional provisional register on time, and we have received it. And I think that the political parties, we have enough personnel to go through to make sure, because this register is not going to be exhibited for just a day.
Right,
there
it's
are a number
week-long
of
activity.
days. Yes, so I think the political parties should also do their bit to assist the EC and the country. So I
think problem solved. But Kojo Poku, what are your thoughts?
Well, beautiful. I think with the party with the biggest grassroots support, the party with the most active executives in all polling stations, it's a good exercise that we have also embarked on something called editing of the polling station album. So this exhibition is a very big step for us to be able to identify and the new voters, because this is mostly for the new registrants. Some people have registered, you know, the registration was done at the district level. So mostly if you did it at the district level, they give the person a polling station. You need to now make sure that that person knows exactly the first-time voters, right? Because there's a bit of A and B in some of the polling stations. So that person could be in a Mary LA. It may be polling station A or B. If you don't go and identify the exact polling station where that person is on election day, it's going to be chaotic. So this is the time for first-time voters to take part in this exercise, to go and physically see where they are voting on the 7th of December.
Right.
I think everybody is enthused to come out boldly and vote for the right party, and I think it's a beautiful exercise.
Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, your thoughts now?
So I have a slightly different opinion on this one. We are keeping fingers crossed for this voters exhibition exercise to go according to plan. But I think the EC needs to be more transparent with the nation in terms of their preparedness and what contingency plans they have in place in case something doesn't go according to plan. If you look at this case about the provisional voters register that the political parties were waiting for, I think the EC had asked them, the political parties, that they needed to submit their external drives back in July. And they are now beginning to release the provisional register to the stakeholders as of yesterday. I don't think that's a good thing. It leaves the stakeholders in the doubt, right, of the EC's preparedness to run a flawless and also a transparent elections.
But Dr. Bosman was saying that they had up to 30 days to provide the register to the various political parties, and they hadn't in fact exceeded that. Although the timelines they gave the political parties had exceeded and they didn't, come through with the register, they didn't actually exceed the time frame that they allotted to provide the register.
So it's called communication, right? You need to communicate with them so that there will not be any guesswork. My question is, were they having any major issues while there was such, I call it delays. There were delays in releasing the register to other political parties. They have to communicate and assure the stakeholders, because these delays can erode trust between the EC and the political parties, as well as among the electorate. And like I said, it may cause the parties to begin to suspect unfair practices which could lead to accusations of bias or manipulation. And sweetie, anyone who has been close to campaigns know that the political parties also rely on this provisional register to plan strategically and effectively run campaigns. So I think that such a delay can hinder the ability to mobilize supporters and conduct targeted campaigns and engage with their constituents.
All right. Let's do some other stories.
Well,
but
can I quickly correct something? Please, you know, it's funny. That is why Dr. Dogbe should be in Ghana. You know what I mean? Him living in America doesn't help him. Look, there was recently an extension at IPAC, and my brother that's it from CPP will tell you, there was recently an extension of the registration. So if you gave your hard drive in July, and recently we had a 3-day extension of new registrants, right? In August, first week of August. How do somebody gives you the documentation if they gave you the hard drive in July and the new entrants will not be on your hard drive? So I think the IPAC is fully aware that they needed to delay the release of the information because there were extension, 3-day new registration that happened.
Because you can imply that. You need to communicate with the people. You need to communicate with the stakeholders. But
they are at IPAC. They are aware of it. They are not aware that there was a 3-day extension of the registrar? Everybody in Ghana knows that.
Kojo Poku, I think what he's saying is that although, you know, the extension, there are reasons for the extension, they should have communicated to the parties that specifically because of that extension, the date we gave you will not be able to deliver on that date.
Communicated to them at IPAC.
Right. Gentlemen, let's do some other stories. There's this drought story, Southern Africa. We here in Ghana are not spared. We've seen some people who think that they need to pray to God before the rains come. Let me do a bit of the story. 68 million people, and this is on page 5 of the Daily Graphic, 68 million people reeling from drought in Southern Africa. Tens of millions of people in Southern Africa suffering the effect of an El Nino-induced drought, a regional bloc has warned, with a drop in crop and livestock production causing food shortages in several countries. And the Executive Secretary of the Southern Africa Development Community, Elias Magosi, said that 17% of the region's population, some 68 million people, were in need of assistance. Just to put this whole situation of climate change and the effect or the impact of it in perspective. This is happening in Southern Africa, but we're also experiencing it. Let me add 2 more stories before I come to you, gentlemen. On the international front, ceasefire talks may be last chance to free hostages, and that is on the Israel-Gaza war going on. Adopt multifaceted approach to improve healthcare. Dr. Kuma Boaji to stakeholders on the back of national health insurance. President cut saw, yes, let's do the story. President cut sought for 12 billion petroleum hub project, and President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has performed the sword cutting ceremony for the construction of the first phase of the petroleum hub project at Naule in the Jomoro district of the Western region. And the 3 independent phases of the project estimated at $12 billion are to ensure value addition to the country's oil and gas resource to create a modern, diversified, and financially sustainable energy economy for the country. Let me skip to this part. Quote, "Today is a very good day for our homeland, Ghana," he stated, adding that this project promises to be a cornerstone of our nation's development, ensuring that all Ghanaian homes and industries have access to reliable, affordable, and environmentally sustainable energy. That is according to the president. Let me go to the gentleman on Zoom, and then I'll come back to you in the studio. Let me start with you, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe. I'm sure this is...
I think that...
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I think that establishing a petroleum hub in a nation like this one, it can potentially offer positive impacts on economic growth and also energy security, and of course, development in the area. And the oil exploration in this community was started by the previous administration. And at the time, this development project was designed to be one of the advantages that the local community would gain from the oil exploration in the region. It took some time for this government to eventually get to it, but better late than never, they say, right? So I think it is a step in the right direction, and for the president to commission something like this, I think he deserves to be applauded for finally getting to it. And I believe that if we roll this thing out effectively, it will attract more investment in infrastructure and in technology and services to the area. And that is job creation. and of course a potential increase in government revenue,
right,
through taxes and royalties. I understand that the road network in the area is also very bad, and the people have been begging, practically begging government for help for some time now. So I hope this will bring that development that the area desperately needs. But I think that the petitioners were asking for was a very simple thing, right? They wanted the PHDC to sign a comprehensive and also a binding memo of understanding to assure the community and the chiefs and the families that they will receive a fair share in the use of the natural resources there.
Right.
And I understand the position of the presidency that that 20,000 acres of land for this project is subject to compulsory acquisition as enshrined, in our constitution, and also in the 2020 Land Act. I think it's Act 1036. But let's be fair to our people.
I'm sorry to interject. I'm just doing a quick search, and I'm going to ask my backroom to help me as well. You said the petroleum had begun by the previous administration. I thought it started around 2018, which is... The
exploration. Oh, okay. The exploration is out.
Okay.
It started way before this administration.
What exploration? No exploration in Ghana was started by the previous administration, please.
Kojo, give me a second. Let him finish his train of thought. I'll come to you in a bit, okay? Kojo, I'll come to you in a bit. I'll come to you in a bit.
Before this administration, the actual exploration.
Which exploration was started before this administration? Which one?
Kojo, I'll come to you in a bit. Please hold for me.
The community is called Jomoro. But let's be fair to our people, right? For many, many years now, our communities where we mine precious minerals and are drilling oil, these communities don't always get a fair share of these natural resources.
Right.
Not in education, not in healthcare, or even infrastructure development.
Okay.
And this has to change, right? This is what I believe the petitioners were asking for.
All right.
Kojo, I can send you a news article as way back before even this administration about this Jomoro exploration.
Okay, Doc, hold for me. Kojo, your thoughts now.
Let me give a little education to my brother. There is no exploration in Jomoro. Okay, there is no in Ghana as we speak now. We don't have any onshore exploration. All exploration is offshore in the sea. Jomoro. The only reason they've chosen Jomoro for this hub is because, look, if you remember some time back, there's something called the Osagefo badge. The Osagefo badge was to be situated in that area. We've been trying to do a petroleum enclave in that area to bring up economic activity in the Jomoro area for some time now. There is no exploration in that area. Every exploration is offshore in the sea. Now, let me make my substantive, what you call it. My brother wants to throw dust into the eyes of Ghanaians. Look, I think that is a good thing. The 12 billion investment going into that area will bring up economic activities in that area. To have petrochemical hub in that part of the country will bring about immense wealth to the people. I think it's unfortunate that some people want a commitment from government that they will get a stake. No community in Ghana gets stakes in any government investment in their community. You get royalties. Yes, you might get what you call the social commitment, which basically bring development in that area. But look,
you don't think that has to change?
Well, that's a different conversation, my brother. Look, the Nanado Dr. Bawumia government and now the Dr. Bawumia manifesto has promised a very big review of the upstream. We are going to review the Act 919, which is the petroleum law. We are going to make the upstream a business-friendly environment where we are going to reduce the litigation that goes on in the upstream and make sure that we engage companies to bring more of the needed dollar in Ghana. Admittedly, look, our upstream have stagnated in the last 10 years. We need to bring a lot more incentive to the business community to invest more in our upstream. So this 12 billion is a step in the right direction. And to make a point that my brother said that the roads are bad, if there's going to be 12 billion investment in your area, you are guaranteed to get asphalt and dual carriages coming into your area.
So, Kojo, is that where the 200 million Ghana cedis will be coming from? That's the money allocated to compensate landowners who will be affected by this. Is it coming out of the 12 billion, or is it coming from the coffers of the nation?
There are two stages of it. You need to acquire the land, which is, this thing is more of a PPP. So government has a bit of a commitment to the transaction, which is the land acquisition. And depending on the negotiation that has been done, the people in the area will be compensated for the land that has been taken.
Yes,
so
yes,
that
yes.
amount
And that's 200 million Ghana cedis. I just want clarity. Where is it coming from?
Well, I don't know the exact amount, but if it's
Well,
that
I'm
amount,
saying it's
government will be the
200.
one
It's right there in the paper. It's 200 million Ghana cedis
for
allocated.
compensation
Yes.
for the landowners. Yes.
Yes.
So it will be money paid to the community. Yes.
The question is, where is that money coming from? Do you know where it's coming from?
If the compensation for land is going to come from the government is the one acquiring the land as their part of the PPP. So 200 million, if that is the compensation, it will come from the government.
Thank you, Kojo. Kwame,
Yes.
your quick thoughts on this.
To continue from where my brother Kojo left, the 200 million will come from the government, as he said. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the $12 billion, because I believe there are other stakeholders involved in this petroleum hub. And usually when it comes to compulsory acquisition of land, it is basically a contract between the government itself and the landowners. There are hardly any third parties involved. So I believe that the government will get this, as stated in the story. So the president announced allocation of 200 million by the Ministry of Finance for land compensation to affected communities. So these things are basically between the landowners and the government. So it may not necessarily come out of the 12
What
billion.
I was probing is not that the money will not come from Ghana, but where are we Ghanaians? Where is the government going to pull out 200 million cedis as we speak? I just want a sense of. I just want a sense of. I just want to. Yeah, Kojo, you were saying.
Ghana government doesn't have 200 million.
Oh, we do?
To do a project, there's a project worth $12 billion, and the Ghana government doesn't have 200 million Ghana cedis. Please, let's put it in together. 200 million cedis and
Kojo,
$12 billion.
It's not about what can come out of the 12
No,
billion.
but you really think that the government is that broke?
So we are not broke? Our total debt as we speak, well, time will not...
has 200 million. Hold on.
So as we speak, the government has 200 million Ghana cedis lying around that they'll just pull out and give to the...
No, it's not lying around, please. It's not lying around, but the government do have 200 million. It's not lying around. But the government can find if it wants to.
There are a lot of projects that we need money for. There are a lot of things like infrastructure development, schools and stuff that we need money for, that if the government has money, or use, like Kojo, you say, can find it if they want to, what's stopping them from finding these money?
So that's rather than the issue is, right?
Rather than going to external, looking for loans all over the place.
We shouldn't do the 12 billion transaction then. We shouldn't do the 12 billion transaction.
Oh, Kojo, that's not the focus.
Sweetie.
But let's move on from this.
What's the point you are driving at?
Yes, Dr. Wisdom Dogbe.
This is the issue. This shows that we have the money, right? But the folks that are in charge, they allocate these resources based on some criteria that doesn't benefit Ghanaians. That's the reason why you hear about a company that was formed yesterday getting contracts today, multi-million-dollar contracts. It shows that we do have the money.
We have money in this country, and it's okay. We have money.
Togo, right?
I'll give you 30 seconds to complete the drink. Please let him finish.
So I think I'll move on from where the money is coming from. But I understand where you are coming from. The money is there, but it seems wasted on multiple V8s. You know, you have one minister moving and about 10, 20 V8s. So I understand where you are coming from. And I also agree with Dr. Dogbe on his view that signing the memo, the issue about the local benefits from these projects, it has to change. I think I agree with him. It does have to change. The various communities have to get more than they are currently getting from these large-scale projects. And that will urge other communities to also fight for such projects to come to them. Otherwise, you have communities sitting back knowing that, oh yes, we're going to benefit from this Jomoro project. Okay. The project is a step in the right direction, but I believe that the locality should benefit more than they are doing now. Because the royalties and other things, they don't really do much at the moment.
This is some good news for me so far. Ghana has no mpox disease, according to Asiedu Bekoyene. The Ghana Health Service says the country has not recorded any case of monkeypox disease, and it's mpox because of the racist element attached to the word monkey,
yes,
so they changed it to mpox. And it said claims of an outbreak in the country was a case of data misrepresentation. So far, there's no case of mpox recorded in Ghana. Let me do one last story here, and then I'll come to your paper, Kwame. Let's reduce dependency on external aid. And this is according to the president, urging African governments to reduce dependency on external aid. So President Akufo-Addo has urged African governments to pursue strategies to stimulate economic self-sufficiency, to reduce dependency on external aid, which has undermined domestic ownership and self-reliance. Quote, aid weakens the capacity of African governments to generate and mobilize domestic resources, ultimately hindering sustainable development. And this is where I end the quote. Your quick reflection on what the president is saying to other African governments in contrast to what we experience or have been experiencing in this administration for nearly 8 years now. Yeah. Are we self-sufficient? Are we self-reliant? Or do we actually depend on foreign aid, external aid for our development projects?
We do depend on foreign aid. And I'm one of those who rejoiced when the president said Ghana beyond aid, because I felt it was in the right direction. But as it stands now, I really cannot say any government has depended on aid more than this government has. So it's a complete U-turn. However, his call on other African countries to look at being self-sufficient is a step in the right direction. So he's bringing us back to the independence of the African continent. And we cannot achieve this without we, the African countries, it's a working together to ensure that we move forward together. Okay. Look at the EU and their economic policies. It is to protect the EU. So it all goes back to Kwame Nkrumah's vision of the unity of the African continent. Right. And I'm glad that the president is coming back to his roots as a former secretary of CPP at Legon, to know that indeed Nkrumah's way is the right way. So it's a good call. Okay. And I suppose you follow up by ensuring that the African countries are united before his term ends, so that he will have, that will be the greatest legacy to his name. And I call on him to ensure that.
Kojopo, could do this for me briefly. Are we preaching virtue and practicing vice?
No, not at all. I mean, that is the will, that is the way that we are supposed to go. And that brings me back to my tax conversation. The only way we can be self-sufficient is to now look at the best document that has ever been presented to the people of Ghana in tax reforms. We can only be self-sufficient if we have a comprehensive tax reform of this country. Like I said earlier, in 2018, we had 1.5 million people registered with tax identification number. Today, we have over 18 million people with tax identification number by the adaptation of the Ghana card as the tax identification number. So today, if the Dr. Bawumia manifesto promised that we are going to have a flat rate tax for everybody, so that it's not very difficult for you to do, no interfacing with the GRA people, we are going to have an online tax assessment for everybody to do that once a year, it's a good thing. And that is the way to go, and that is the only way that we can have a self-sufficiency in this country and do what the president says exactly.
Dr. Addo, we'll come to you briefly, but Kojo, I listened to the vice president when he was reading the manifesto, and he said on this tax issue that no government has ever thought or done this since independence, review that tax structure.
Yeah, nobody has ever reformed. We inherited our tax.
Hold on. Let me land the question. So, my question is, as head of the economic management team, this is still he's still in government, and he says no government has ever thought about this or done this. What stops him from implementing these policies? Do we have to wait for him to be president before he relieves us of all these tax burdens?
That's a great question.
Ms. Abuchi, me and you have been on this platform several times, and we have done the back and forth on this conversation several times. Dr. Bawumia has never been president. No, please, let me land. Dr. Bawumia has never been president. I don't know where this... You see, look, that's why we keep saying that let's stop propagating this NDC propaganda. It doesn't work, okay? Because, look...
This is an objective question of... He said no government has ever done this, but he's still the vice president.
But when he said it, yes, though but the vice president is not a co-president. Please, listen.
But he is the chair of the economic management team.
There is no, I have said this to you several times, there is no constitutional mandate for any economic management team. It's only an advisory body to the president. Now,
right.
Ms. Abuchi, you have been, please let me answer your question clearly. You have been part, or maybe somebody listening to us must have been an assistant manager. You might have beautiful
right before I
ideas that
move
you
on,
give to your manager.
Kojo, I get your point, but right before I move on,
No, you don't get it because you keep repeating it. If you get it, then don't ever repeat it again.
I'm sorry, you cannot put example what I can say or cannot say.
I think it is
vote for me.
You keep asking this same question.
All right, Kojo, let's cool off for a bit. Dr. Wizondogwe coming now.
Sudi, look, this thing that His Excellency President Akufo-Addo said to the other African governments, that we need to reduce dependency on external aid, I think it's so good to hear. But isn't this the Ghana Beyond Aid that we've been talking about for ages now? They say charity begins at home. So before we go about lecturing other nations about the need to actually, attain economic independence, would it not be nice to at least start to try that here? I mean, in Ghana, I'm not there, but in Ghana in the first place. Look, I think the president is absolutely right in this charge, to wean ourselves from external aid. That's perfect. But how do other nations see us when this administration successfully bankrupted the country and ran to the IMF and the World Bank for several loans? What street cred do we have now to tell other nations that go ahead and pursue strategies to stimulate economic sufficiency? We don't have much of credibility on this topic, sweetie. The sad part is that if you look at Ghana and most African countries, the truth is that we are not poor nations at all. That is, if you look at the natural resources that we are blessed with, our problem is corruption and nepotism and mismanagement. If you deal with these things, we can easily be on our way to economic freedom.
All right, Doc. For the sake of time, I have to interject now. Let me do some quick headlines. From the New Finder. Let's do some other stories. My producer has been kind enough to give us a little bit of time. So in the New Finder, the same story about 12 billion being Petroleum project taking off. President cutting sword. Ghana risks losing $3 million in unpaid surface rentals. SNIT launches digital bouquet as self-employed enrollment hits 100,000. Let's start from that story. It sounds interesting, and it's on page 8 of the New Finder newspaper. And it reads, yes, I got it. The Self-Employed Enrollment Drive, that is the SEED project, initiative by the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, has seen a significant increase in membership, growing from approximately 13,000 members in May 2023 to about 100,000 within a year. And this represents an impressive growth of over 700% within 1 year. And the SEED aims to extend pension coverage to self-employed individuals and workers in the informal sector. And SNIT is encouraging others to join the scheme. And to those running their own businesses, Mr. Safo-Mafo encouraged them to sign up with SNIT to enjoy peace of mind that comes with assurance of a monthly pension in retirement for life, along with other benefits. On oil and gas, Ghana accelerates growth. World-class digital economy go. World-class digital economy is our goal, declares Dr. Mamudu Bawumia. I just want to add one more story so that I take your comprehensive thoughts, and then we can wrap up. CEO of Ghana Tourism Authority launches book on African Diaspora Connection. Ministry of Health activates Mpox emergency response team. Let me see what's on the back page. Smart technologies, a game changer for Ghana's SMEs, and Dr. Mamudu Bawumia reviews plans for Ghana Premier League at Manifesto launch. Let's get a bit into the story about giving Premier League's clubs a buzz. I found it quite interesting. The Vice President and flag bearer of the NPP, Dr. Mamudu Bawumia, has disclosed his elaborate plan to support the Ghana Premier League during the launch of his manifesto, and including tax funding, training, tax incentives and direct support. Giving details of what he intends to do, the president said his government directly supports the Premier League and the clubs by directing policy through the National Lottery Authority and the Gaming Commission to establish a fund for the sports employment module and assist Premier League clubs fund operational expenses. That particular line item is not here, but he did say that he wanted to give buses to the clubs, each club. So these three stories, for your quick reflection: SNIT enrollments reaching 100,000 for self-employed individuals, and then we did that story about the Ghana Premier League, or the vice president supporting, and which other story did we do? But let me hear your thoughts now.
Regarding now, I want to start with the last story. I don't know how getting the buses for the teams will improve our performance on the Premier League. If you look at sports generally, you look at the recent Olympics, we came back with no medals. I mean, it's a great embarrassment. As a country of very strong sportsmen and women, that means something is wrong somewhere. You have all these fans buying a bus. I think the government should rather get to know on the ground what exactly is going on. Do they have adequate training facilities? You can have all the buses in the world. If you don't have adequate training facilities, if you don't pick up the talents at a young age and train them as the US and other countries do with Simone Biles and others, you will not get anywhere. Right. So fine, he can get the bus, but in addition to getting the bus, he should go on the ground, get the talents, set up, I mean, you can even set up sports colleges in order to help these children, give sports scholarships. And then we come to the 100,000 self-employed signing on. Yeah. I think that is a great testament to the Ghanaian citizenry. I think increasingly the citizens and the electorates, they are waking up to the fact that they have to take their destiny into their own hands. As you cannot really rely on the state now as it is. I mean, even with the DDEP and all that, even your investments, your pensions, they are not assured. So you have to take your destiny into your own hands. Sign onto the SNIT with the self-employment. I think
I'm sorry, I have to move on because of time. Let me go to Kojo Poku. I'll come to you briefly. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, and please give me a comprehensive sense of your thoughts on all these stories, and then wrap up for me, and then we have to go.
I think quickly, I'll be very brief. On the sports story, right? Surprisingly, I should be criticizing this, but I kind of like it, right? Okay. When our leaders lead us into economic stress, and the nation is struggling, some of the few things that still bring us together is sports, right? Or sing-a-thon, cook-a-thon, stuff like that. So investing in sports to get that excitement for the nation is something that I find quite exciting. That is if it's not a political garment.
Thank you so much for that. Kojo Poku, you have the final word. I think you're muted.
I'm glad we cannot hear Kojo.
I think the manifesto it wasn't Dr. Baumia sat in his room and pulled out those documents. There was a committee led by no other but Asamoah Gyan, the best footballer we've known in Ghana for a very long time. Asamoah Gyan and his team traversed the country from all 16 regions and spoke to all people within the sports fraternity. And their demands, their needs, what they need was what was put on paper. So please, let's not anybody sit in a studio and say that provided a bus, how does that? Because we have to attend to the need of the people. This manifesto is a practical manifesto.
Kojo, you do realize or recall that I didn't actually criticize it. I said I thought it was interesting.
I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about you. My brother in the studio made a comment that he doesn't see how a bus transforms the league.
Kojo, give me a wrap of your thoughts and let's go.
Please, let me round up here because you interjected. Look, the most important thing is that a manifesto is basically a combination of ideas and consultative on the ground. Now, we did not just say that we're going to just give just a bus. He said that he's going to have the Agenda 2028, where he's going to put resources towards Ghana, identifying some unique Olympic sports that we are going to get medals in. And all those things are part of the brilliant ideas that our brother Asamoah Gyan, and good morning to you, Asamoah Gyan, this morning, for those wonderful ideas you put in those manifestos.
You just heard there Kojo Poku. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Kojo Poku is energy analyst and obviously from the camp of the NPP. Dr. Wisdom Dogbe is a financial analyst. And in the studio with me, Kwame Bosio, also from the camp
of the NDC. Please add that.
Kwame Bosio from CPP.
Thank you.
The Secretary for the Independent Committee. Thank you so much for joining us for breakfast. But right before we go, another reminder that you can take advantage of the free prostate screening and free fertility screening that Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is giving at their various locations. In Accra, you can find them on the Spintex Road, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Krono Mabuehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. In Takrade, Anaji Estate. In Tema, Community 22. In Techiman, Hanswa. In Esiama, in Zema. And you can also call them on 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And that brings us sports coming up shortly. You want to stay for that.